Bum, 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 bum. Hey, James, come on in here. You're right on time, if not early. Andrew, good to see you. Dale, Tyler, what a treat. We're all together here for yet another Coffee with Scott Adams, the best part of your day. And what's the best part of the best part? I think you know. It's the simultaneous sip. And it goes like this. All you need is a cup or a mug or a glass, a sniffler or a stein, a chalice, tankard, thermos, flask, canteen, grail, goblet, vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. Go! Wow. That's some good sipping. So I just saw a survey online that said that the percentage of men and women who are not having any kind of sex in the past year has doubled in the past 10 years. So it used to be somewhere in the 10% range of people who were not having any sex in the past year. And now for men, it's 28%. 28% of men haven't had sex in the past year, and 18% of women. How do you explain that? So, don't we have a more promiscuous society than ever? We do, right? Seems like we have a more promiscuous society than we've ever had, and yet the number of men and women having sex has plunged. 28% of men did not have sex in the past year. How do you explain that? Easy. I predicted it many years ago. It's easy to predict. It goes like this. The quality of pornography started with, well, I hope I could find a dirty magazine somewhere. And then it went to VHS tape, but still a little hard to get. And then it went to digital, online, available in infinite quantities for free. And you can find exactly what you want. You don't have to find approximately what you want, because you can find exactly what you want. So the quality of the alternative, which is looking at pictures online, has gone from, well, this is pretty good as a change of pace, to, I think this is better than people. Because think about it. The average person cannot attract a superstar, model, male or female partner. Most people can attract somebody who looks sort of like they look. And so you would expect that a large number of people would find that the quality of the alternative is just better. And I think automation has largely replaced human beings for at least a quarter of the population. Literally. There's no hyperbole there at all. Automation, in the form of online pornography, has replaced human interaction for 28% of men. And I don't think part of the story is that they're less happy. That's the thing that the story doesn't include. Are they more happy or are they less happy? I don't know. They don't say. I would think that because there's some amount of human contact that is necessary for mental health, that they're less happy, but maybe they don't know it. All right, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about that Turkey ceasefire that's not really a ceasefire. So, according to the United States, there's a ceasefire between Turkey and the Kurds. According to the Kurds, there's no ceasefire. There's just a pause. What's the difference between pausing firing at people and ceasing firing at people? Well, I guess the ceasing maybe seems like it's less temporary than the pausing. Is there anything, I don't even know, what's the difference? I have no idea what the difference is. Here are some things you should know. When you have a ceasefire or a pause, what are the things you can guarantee the news will serve up? Are you ready? In that area of the world, the first thing you can guarantee is that one side will claim the other side bombed a hospital. Is there any chance that you're not going to hear that story? 100% chance that if there's a ceasefire in the Middle East, no matter who it is, somebody is going to say the other side bombed a hospital. Now, and of course, that's exactly what is being claimed right now, that the Turks bombed a hospital during the ceasefire. Now, there's not a report that there's a ton of bombing going on. So the report is not that it's widespread bombing, they're bombing all over the place, but rather there's a report of a specific bombing. Now, what are the odds that the Turks decided to do a ceasefire, but also bomb just a hospital? We're not going to bomb much. We'll just bomb a hospital. Does that seem likely? Seriously. Of all the things that they could bomb, they're not bombing everything. They had apparently chose their targets very carefully because there wasn't much cheating. There was just a little bit of cheating. And that little bit of cheating, they decided to bomb a hospital? No. So you always expect the fake hospital bombing story every time. And sure enough, right on schedule, I'm looking for it. It's like, okay, where's the fake hospital bombing? Oh, there it is. Fake hospital bombing story, right on schedule. What's the other fake story that you know is going to come? Oh, it's already here. The fake story that the Turkey is using chemical weapons. Now, are they using chemical weapons? Could be. Could be. Yeah, I think white phosphorus with the munitions. It's entirely possible that the Turks are using some illegal chemical weapons. But here's the context. What were the odds that whether or not anybody used any chemical weapons, what are the odds that you would hear a report within 24 hours of the ceasefire that somebody had used chemical weapons? 100%. There was a 100% chance that somebody was going to claim the other side used chemical weapons. And so I pick up my news source, my iPad, and I say, it's been a few hours since the ceasefire. Where's the report of the, there it is, chemical weapons. Hospital report, chemical weapons, right on schedule. Now, I'm not saying those things didn't happen. I'm not going to say a hospital wasn't bombed, and I'm not going to tell you that nobody used chemical weapons. I will tell you that there's a 100% chance that both of those things would be reported in the past 24 hours, whether they happened or not. So can you determine if a hospital had been bombed or if somebody had used chemical weapons? You cannot. You cannot. There is zero useful information coming out of the area. But you can't rule it out. You just don't have any information. Do you think that we really have some kind of an agreement? Meaning, do you think Mike Pence has something like an actual agreement with the Turks and the Kurds and whoever else? There's not a chance. There's not a chance that there's an agreement. There's no chance. And what you should expect is that everybody involved will start telling different stories about who agreed to what, who said what, who was going to do what, and then everybody will wait a few days and go back to doing whatever they wanted to do anyway. So, maybe it gives the Kurds a little time to, build some defenses or something, but I don't think Turkey's going to have a ceasefire that lasts. Do you? Somebody says, isn't the proof in the videos? Yeah, that's funny, with a little winky face. Yeah, you can't trust the videos. You all saw the picture of the mother with her alleged deceased child in her hands. Now, I'm not saying it's a fake video. I'm just saying that child looked alive to me. So you should always expect the fake dead children video, the fake hospital got bombed, and the fake chemical attack story. Those three are guaranteed as soon as the bullets start flying. And they're all there. All right. Admiral Mcraven, who I mistakenly called General Mcraven in a tweet. Admiral Mcraven wrote an op-ed in the New York Times in which he was saying that the president should be removed or should leave office sooner than later. But he doesn't mention impeachment per se. He doesn't mention an election per se. And he is an admiral. What does it mean when an admiral writes an op-ed that says that the president of the United States needs to leave sooner or later without mentioning how? Well, that's a pretty dangerous thought, isn't it? Now, do you think that the military is getting ready for a coup? Well, I think not, because there's just no way it would work out. But does it help the hypnosis coup, the coup that will have no weapons, but rather people will be brainwashed into thinking, oh yeah, we have to replace this president? Does it help to have an admiral, a retired admiral, come out on the side of the hypnosis coup? Of course it does. So part of the brainwashing, that's brainwashing at least half of the country into thinking that the president needs to be changed in a non-election way, is really helped by this admiral. Now, there's some bad news here. I don't know, if you read between the lines, there's really some bad news with this Admiral Mcraven coming out against the president. And really, that's just a symptom. The real problem is, what are the odds now that we've stopped supporting the Kurds, how are the Kurds ever going to support us against Antifa? When the civil war happens and we need the Kurds to come over and fight with us to defend against Antifa, are they going to do it? I don't think so. I think the Kurds are going to say, hey, you didn't help us against ISIS. We're not going to help you against Antifa. Good luck with that, America. So, yes, there's a lot we're losing here. According to Admiral Mcraven, this president has damaged our standing with other leaders and our credibility, so much so that how can we depend on them in the future? For example, let's say we got into a big war. Do you think we could, depend on Greece coming to our rescue? No. Greece would look at the situation and say, well, look what they did to the Kurds. We're not coming to help them militarily. How are we going to win a war without the Greeks? I don't see how. What if let's say Russia sends a nuclear weapon our way and starts a nuclear war? We're not going to have the Kurds on our side. So how are we going to defend against a thermonuclear war with Russia if we have no Kurds? No Kurds at all, like not even one Kurd is going to help us. What are we going to do? Well, I would say we're in pretty bad shape in that case. So Admiral Mcraven has got a good point here. Who is ever going to help the United States? Who? Who is going to help us? Because before this, you could see that other countries were forming a line to give us money and military aid. And my God, other countries wanted to help the United States so much that we almost couldn't handle all the help they were giving us. But now that this Kurd situation is happening, there's no line. Nobody's offering us free money. Nobody is offering to help us in any way. It's so different than it was 2 weeks ago. Very different. So here's the question that I ask. For all those nervous Nancys, such as Admiral Mcraven, who are sure that America is grievously wounded by the actions of this impulsive president with his lack of strategy and all that, what would be an example of that? Well, even a speculative example. I would guess that we don't have any examples of things that have already happened. It's more of a speculative, imaginary future problem. But could somebody describe that for me? For example, what would we want to do in the future that we can't do because of the Kurd situation? I don't really see an example. All right, so what's going to happen with that Kurd safe space? I would say that we have literally no information. Oh, I got to plug in my thing. I hope I didn't lose you there. So we have basically no information about what's happening with this Kurd safe space. We don't know how that's going to turn out. I wouldn't believe anything you're hearing out of the area. We've heard nothing about casualties. What's the thing we keep hearing is that the Turks are slaughtering the Kurds. That's what we keep hearing, right? The Turks are slaughtering the Kurds. Have we seen any reporting of even one dead Kurd? I mean, I hope there are none. But is there even one? Do we have any credible reporting that even one Kurd has been killed so far? I mean, obviously the risk is extreme, but we don't know anything, right? We don't know anything about what's happening over there. Trump called it tough love and is claiming credit for solving the situation. And he's not far off. And I realize that, when things are this polarized, that when I say things like, well, he's not far off, that everybody retreats to their safe space and says, Scott, pretzel reasoning, stop your pretzel reasoning. You will agree with the president no matter what he does, no matter what he does. No, I disagree with the president all the time. I could give you 6 examples of policies that I don't think are working quite right. This just doesn't happen to be one of them. Because he was doing exactly what he promised. He's getting exactly the kind of pushback you'd want and expect. You'd kind of want and expect the military to be uncomfortable with this decision, right? That's our best case scenario is that the military says, we're not done. We don't want to leave our allies. Let us finish the job. That's exactly what you want the military to say. But you also sometimes want the non-military leadership to say, I know you want to fight, but we're going to bring you home. So we have kind of the ideal situation, a little bit of tension between the military who wants to fight, perfect. That's exactly the military you want. They want to fight. And the civilian president who says, I'm not going to let you get killed over this objective. That's perfect. Right, that's right where you want to be. All right. I don't see any situation in which the United States could have agreed to permanently protect the Kurds. And you're going to start to see more reporting like that. Here's my prediction, that no matter what this ceasefire or pause turns into, and my assumption is that the ceasefire will fail, and that it will fail hard. I don't trust Turkey, and I expect that Turkey will just, wait a few days, or they're just moving more troops in, so they didn't care if they waited a few days anyway. So probably they're just getting ready to do a big push, and probably Turkey doesn't plan to honor any agreement because their national security is at risk. If the roles were reversed, would the United States make promises and then just do whatever it needed to do to keep its country safe? Yeah, we would. We would. If you change roles and you made us Turkey, we would promise anything we had to promise, and then we'd do whatever we needed to do. Because ultimately, you need to do whatever you need to do. And Turkey has a legitimate security concern. You might not agree with it, but it's legitimate. They have people attacking them who are in this population, and they can't have them on the border without having some kind of military, cap on it. So, is that enough about that? Yes, that's enough about that. So Mulvaney did a little press thing, and uh, he got attacked for his performance. But I watched it and I thought it was quite good. I thought Mulvaney should be doing more of these, actually. Now, the point of contention is that he said that it's normal business and you should get over it, talking about any president negotiating any kind of quid pro quo with another country. That's exactly the right answer. Exactly the right answer is yes, that's exactly what he did. He withheld some money until he got some, he knew he had some responsiveness from Ukraine about looking into some corruption, and that corruption included some Biden stuff, some CrowdStrike stuff. So Mulvaney just says, yeah, we do that all the time. That's just normal business. To which I say, exactly right. That is exactly the right answer. Every time you say, yes, we did it and it's normal, that's the strongest attack. The weakest attack is we didn't do it, or it's not what you think, or it's not really a quid pro quo, or they didn't see it that way, or just don't say any of that. Just say exactly what you did. Yes, checking on checking on corruption in Ukraine before we give them a massive amount of money is important, not only for the money we're sending, but to make sure we're getting what we want. We don't send them money for nothing. We're not sending them money. The whole point of sending them money is quid pro quo, right? Is there any reason we send them money other than we think it will make them flexible in dealing with us? Mostly. I mean, we could say it's to, I don't know, defend against Russia or something, but mostly we send people foreign aid because we think that'll make them flexible with us. Quid pro quo. So I love Mulvaney just going right at it, just looking at people and say, yeah, let's just get over it. That's what we do. We did it before. We do it all the time. We're going to do it in the future. You don't want us to stop doing it. Stop talking about it. It's nothing. I love that answer. Um, the Kamala Harris's campaign accidentally did something right, but then they quickly reversed it. So they continue to be the worst campaign I've ever seen. I mean, they're actually humorously bad. So what happened was, you all remember the famous photo of Nancy Pelosi at the meeting recently about about Ukraine. No, the meeting about Syria. And Nancy is standing up and pointing at the president, and it's a room full of older white men. So it makes the picture even more interesting because of the contrast. Well, Kamala Harris's team humorously replaced President Trump with a picture of Kamala, not sitting but standing, and posing with her arms crossed, and the caption was, it's time for an upgrade. So they were showing Kamala replacing President Trump in that room situation with, time for an upgrade. Now, apparently that was deleted. I guess it was the campaign manager or somebody put that meme up there, but deleted it because people were changing the photo and photoshopping it and turning it into anti-Kamala stuff. Here's what I say. It was the best thing the campaign has done so far. Not because it was necessarily that funny. It was funny enough. I mean, I enjoyed seeing it. It gave me a little charge of, oh, that's pretty funny. I like what they did there. I mean, it wasn't the funniest thing in the world, but it was funny. It was funny enough. So on that level, as just a meme, pretty good. But here's the great part about it. The great part about it is it allowed you to imagine her as president and working the job. And that's one of the biggest persuasion objectives, is you first have to be able to imagine any of these candidates in the job. This is what I wrote about and talked about extensively when President Trump was candidate Trump and he was running for office, and you couldn't imagine this, orange, force of nature becoming a president. You literally couldn't put it in your brain. Trump in the White House? My brain. And then he did Saturday Night Live. And he greenlit, because of course the candidate has to approve whatever skit they appear in. So he approved a skit in which he showed himself as the president working in the Oval Office doing the job of a president. Now there were jokes, but we don't remember any of the jokes. We remember the visual. There was the president, or candidate Trump, looking like he was already in the job. It was great persuasion. What did Hillary Clinton do? She also went on Saturday Night Live, and she accepted a skit in which she played somebody at a bar drinking too much. She actually approved an image of herself drinking. Trump approved an image of himself as the working president. Those are not equal. Those are not equal. One of them did it right. One of them did it as wrong as you could possibly do it. Kamala's team accidentally, apparently, did exactly the right thing. They allowed us to imagine her working the job, and because of the gender thing, surrounded by all these unhappy-looking men, it was just a powerful meme. And the fact that their campaign deleted it, because I guess there were some funny responses, that was also a mistake. Well, that was the mistake. The mistake was deleting it, because the more attention the original picture got, even if the subsequent ones were more insulting, the better it is for Kamala. The better it is. So that happened. All right, one of my favorite stories of the week is that Trump has decided to select his own Doral golf course as the site for the G7. So just when we're talking about Hunter Biden and conflict of interest and all this, from a list of, I don't know, 10 places, coincidentally, out of all those 10 places, the very best place was Trump's own resort. I love this story. Here's why I love it. What the president does better than anything in the world is control your attention. It's not an accident that he puts this out here just when everybody's complaining about Ukraine and everybody's complaining about Syria. He gives you a new thing to complain about, but do you notice how less important it is? That on the scale of things you should care about, where is your level of caring that he chose his own golf course, I guess, not a resort. He chose his own golf course, which they plan to do at cost. So really, it's going to be priced at cost, they say. How important is it that he picked his own golf course? On the world events, it's the least important thing that happened in the entire world. There's nothing less important than that. And if it makes everybody talk about that, even as a criticism, they're talking about the least important thing that they could possibly be talking about. Do you think anybody's going to vote for him or not vote for him because he chose Doral as the location? No, nobody cares. Nobody cares about that. I mean, it's something to talk about. Nobody cares, especially if he prices it at cost or anything close to cost. Now, here's my second part of that take. Was there a better place to have the G7? Because that's really the question, right? If there had been a better place, then I would say, ooh, there was a better place, so this is looking a little sketchy. But was there a better place? Now, it turns out that the facility apparently is well suited for it. But don't you think that out of that list of 10 places, isn't it reasonable to assume that at least one other place was also suitable? So there had to be at least one other place that was, as suitable as that. So I don't think you can say it was the best physical place, bar none. Maybe it was. I mean, it's possible. But there probably was something close. Here's why it was the best idea ever. What's the point of the G7? What's the point of it? Why do we have it? It's so leaders can meet socially. Is that why? Do we have a G7 so people can get together and have a few drinks and shake hands and go home? No. It's a functional meeting. It is a functional meeting in which negotiating and persuasion and even your personal relationships are the top ticket. You're trying to negotiate, persuade, make connections. What's the best place in the world for President Trump to negotiate, persuade, and influence people, to be allies and stuff? His own house. Now, I say his own house, meaning his property. This president understands that before you walk into the room to negotiate, have you heard me say this before? Set the table. That's right. He uses the phrase all the time. He talks about it in The Art of the Deal. You always set the table. You create a situation so that before you negotiate, you've already put variables in your favor. What is better than waking up in your own property and walking, I don't know, I assume he'll probably stay at his own property, right? He'll be comfortable. It will be familiar. He will have everything he wants. He will have no jet lag. And he'll just get up feeling fresh and like a daisy. Now, what will the other leaders feel when they're not only talking to the President of the United States, but they're doing it at his luxury resort, which I understand is impressive? In other words, the leaders are going to look around and say, not only is he the President of the United States, but everything here is his. Think about that. The whole point of the G7 is to influence these other leaders. The home field advantage. He gave it to himself. Anybody who says this isn't the right decision doesn't really understand how things work. Now, I get the people saying, hey, it's a bad look, because it's going to look like it was, you just did it for yourself. And maybe you did. I'm not a mind reader. Maybe he did it primarily to bring attention to his resort. Maybe he did. It's still the best decision for the country, because you want your president to wake up in one of his own beds, feeling good, feeling familiar, having everything he wants with no question, the food he wants, the type of service environment he wants, everything he wants. You want him waking up into that while all the people he has to influence are also waking up to it. They're waking up to his place. It's amazingly smart. Why am I the first person to say that? Let me ask you, have you heard anybody say what I just said? That the purpose is negotiating. You always set the table. The president just set the table better than you've ever seen it set. You have never seen anybody set a table that well. You've never seen it. It's completely outside of our experience how smart that is. So it's just invisible. I think if you'd seen this happen even once before, you'd say, oh yeah, that's what Eisenhower did. Or you'd say, yeah, Nixon did the same thing. It's smart. You have your home territory. Did Cernovich say that? It's funny, somebody saying in the comments that Mike Cernovich said the same thing. And just before I read that comment, I was actually going to mention him and say he probably said the same thing, even though I didn't see it, because he would have noticed the same thing. All right. There's news that China's GDP is slowing to a near 30-year low because of tariffs. So they're saying it's down to 6% GDP. Now, of course, if the United States ever got up to 6%, we'd think it was the best thing in the world. But all the smart people say China lies about its GDP. It's probably flat or negative. So, can you win a trade war? Remember, everybody said you can't win a trade war? And the president said, effectively, sure I can, watch this. They need us more than we need them. Watch this. Is he not right? can we not say at this point that China's economy is suffering and ours apparently is not suffering at all? The farmers are suffering, and I think maybe more could be done there to move some tariffs in their direction so that they can get some benefits. But it looks like the president called it right. They needed us more than we needed them. Now, I do not predict that we'll ever have a comprehensive trade deal with China, because I don't think they want a fair deal, and we wouldn't sign an unfair deal. So I just don't think it'll ever happen. I think their economy will continue to suffer forever, and ours will probably just keep getting better. All right. So we're hearing reports about Turkey's President Erdogan and how he reacted to Trump's, let's say, way too casual letter, which was also a little bit threatening. So you all read the letter by now, his friendly letter to Turkish president, in which he basically said, hey, let's be friends, but if you don't want to be friends, I will crash your economy. I did it before, so don't be a fool, play it smart. And the report is that Erdogan read that letter and threw it in the trash. And then there's another report about he's somehow threatened that we'll pay for this insult. He'll get us back for the insult. Here's how you should respond to that letter, or how you should respond to those reports. Nobody knows what Erdogan did when he read the letter. Do you think we really had somebody in the room, and there's somebody who accurately reported that Erdogan read the letter and crumpled it up and threw it in the trash? I mean, maybe it's possible. But there's no such thing as an accurate report about what happened in the room in Turkey. That's a stupid report. It's possible, but nobody knows that. That's not a credible report. You should not take that as meaning anything. Likewise, whatever Erdogan is thinking about the letter, we assume he didn't like it. But was it a letter that was written with the hope that the recipient would like the letter? It was not. It was written with the intention of threatening him in public. The letter was written as a threat. Should we expect Erdogan to like being threatened? No. Should we expect that he would like being essentially insulted by the letter? No, we should not expect him to like that. But he is a NATO ally, and he probably needs to work with us, and we probably need to work with Turkey. So does it make any difference? Probably not. Probably not. Makes no difference. So I got a question. I noticed that most, if not all, of my critics on Twitter, and I don't know if this is any different than it's ever been, but they're almost 100% going after me personally now. So they don't even, so I'll say something about politics, or I'll make some point about something that's happening in the news. And no longer do people disagree with the point. They just send tweets to say I'm incredibly stupid, I'm the Dilbert guy, and since I'm such a loser because I make a bad cartoon, nobody should listen to me. And I think to myself, what is the internal process that's going on? Now, some of them are just paid trolls, and they're just there to cause trouble. But the people who are like real people, they wake up in the morning, and I was looking at one of them, one of the trolls that came after me, and I often look at the profiles of the trolls just to have a sense of who they are and why they're saying what they're saying. And his profile said something like, dad, husband. Basically, he was just like this nice guy. But he gets on Twitter and he becomes a sadist, like an actual sadist. And by sadist, I mean he did something to hurt a stranger for no particular gain that is obvious, other than the pleasure of hurting somebody. And I think to myself, that's very revealing that somebody would wake up and say, I have a free pass because Twitter is sort of the Wild West. I will go to a stranger and I'll say something deeply insulting in hopes that the stranger reads it. And I think to myself, what is their internal process for that? You know, some of them are just political, so maybe they're trying to scare people off of Twitter or whatever. But I don't think most of them. I think most of them actually get pleasure out of sadism, of the ability to hurt somebody at a distance without any risk of being hurt back. And I think maybe Twitter needs to add another button. You know, so right now you can retweet and you can like things. And I guess you can report a troll. But what if somebody's not exactly a troll in the sense that they're not, you know, a paid troll or a bot or something? They're just a real person, but they're also a sadist. Shouldn't we have a button to mark sadists so that eventually they only can get to see each other? In other words, I should be able to mark that guy not as a troll because I'm not asking that he be removed from Twitter at all. It's free speech. He said something I don't like. That's not a reason to be kicked off of Twitter. But I'd like to mark him and say, oh, here's somebody who finds pleasure from hurting strangers. Why can't I make that part of his permanent record? Just say, oh, this guy, he says he's like a dad and a softball coach or whatever. Seems like a nice guy, but here's a perfect example. It's public. Here's a person who likes hurting people for fun. Yeah, somebody's saying Tom Arnold. Yeah, people are complicated. So Tom Arnold might like it for the attention. You know, there are other things going on. But I'm talking about the anonymous person who only gets out of it the pleasure of hurting a stranger or the hope that they hurt you because they said something you won't like. There should be some way to mark sadists. Now, of course, you don't want people illegitimately marked because then everybody would say, oh, Scott, you're the sadist. I mark you a sadist. So there should be some way you can, you know, check for yourself, something like that. I don't know. Maybe there's no system that would work for that. But I don't think sadists should be allowed to mingle with non-sadists. It's one thing to disagree, but it's another thing to just insult somebody for the fun of insulting. You should be marked as a sadist. Now, some of you know that I quite often insult people online. You've seen it a million times if you follow my Twitter account. But I almost always limit it to these two categories. It's either somebody who's, you know, a major politician, so that's a different category, or somebody who started it. You know, if somebody starts it first, it's a free slap. I always take a free slap. It's part of the entertainment. I do it for fun. I do it because other people read it. So when I respond to people, I'm trying to be clever enough that other people will enjoy reading it. So that's usually what I'm going for. Yeah, I don't go to somebody's Twitter feed just to give them an insult if they're a random person. All right, enough about that. I think we've hit all the big points. Give us a break, get over it. What's that mean? That's all the left has is ad hominems. Yeah, have you noticed that the complaints against the president have turned entirely imaginary now? All of the complaints about the president are, well, things are going well, but what if somebody sees his personality and then acts in a way in the future that we can't quite predict but might be bad for us in some unspecified way? That's it. There might be some unspecified way that we can't define that something bad might happen to us in the future, but we don't know what that is. Could be bad. Meanwhile, the economy is plugging along. All right. Let me mention again that if you have not already purchased my amazing book, Loser Think, you will be way behind because on November 5th, when it comes out, you can pre-order it now everywhere that you can pre-order, Amazon.com, etc. And once it comes out, people are going to be using that word loser think a lot. And You don't want to be left behind. So make sure you get your copy. It's going to be very useful for you to debate with people online. I did some book signings for this. I might do some more, but I'll tweet about that if I do. And, well, thank you, Sharon, for your nice words. And that's all for now. Talk to you later.